you, thank you. Please, just hand your gifts over to the usher. So when the presidents of Harvard, MIT, and the University of Pennsylvania are exposed as dumb, dumber, and dumbest, it's a great day for all of us. In case you missed it, these three leading educrats were grilled like bratwursts at a tailgate by Congress last week on the issue of genocide.
Specifically calling for the genocide of Jews, does that constitute bullying or harassment?
If it is directed and severe or pervasive, it is harassment.
So the answer is yes.
It is a context-dependent decision.
Calling for the genocide of Jews does not constitute bullying and harassment?
I have not heard calling for the genocide for Jews on our campus.
But you've heard chants for intifada.
I've heard chants, which can be anti-Semitic depending on the context.
At Harvard, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Harvard's rules of bullying and harassment, yes or no?
It can be, depending on the context.
Genocide, people. The systematic extermination of an entire group of people. Or as Hitler called it, the most fun you can have with your pants on. Yet somehow Curly, Moe, and Larry just couldn't find their way to renounce it. You know, because standing against mass murder can be a tough call. You know, it's like they were being asked to define a woman. As you know, the president of UPenn has already stepped down. It's a start, but the other two are hanging around like a fart in Kilmeade's private elevator. He has a private elevator. And stomach issues. Harvard's president, Claudine Gay, issued a supposedly clarifying statement that was about as clear as IKEA directions to assemble a spaceship. And it's likely not the only crap she's going to have to answer for. According to a report from researcher Chris Rufo, Gay plagiarized sections of her PhD dissertation in 1997. If true, while on her path to become head administrator, she violated the school's policy on academic integrity. Does it matter? Well, it didn't back then. I wonder why. Now, anyone who watched these hearings saw the worst televised answers since that time Dana was on Jeopardy.
Name the movie for 2000, please.
In a 1982 Charmer.
I'll be right here.
Dana.
Sorry.
Haley Joel Osment's I See Dead People. Dana.
What is The Exorcist?
No. For our final today, we are dealing with museums and this clue. Completed in 1959, it's been variously described as a snail, a concrete tornado, even a giant wedding cake. Did you get this? Oh, you weren't able to do? And it'll cost you how much? $3,200, so you drop down to zero.
There's really no reason to include that in this monologue. None whatsoever. Happy holidays. So the whole spectacle was laugh out loud funny. Unlike Saturday Night Live's take, boy, did that stink. It was so bad, even Kamala Harris stopped laughing. SNL's new motto shouldn't be live from New York, it should be dead from the neck up. But this hearing was important for more than just cleaning house. It finally shined the light on those leading our young people and into an increasingly competitive future. And what we saw is a system that defines speech suppression as free speech and threats as tolerance. You know, everyone's opinion is viewed as violence, except those that call for violence, which makes about as much sense as paying 150 grand to send your brat to a place that will send him home a Marxist who hates your guts. But now you have no excuse for not knowing how bad it is. See, if you saw those hearings, you felt your IQ dropping faster than Joe Biden's body temperature. Especially when they said calling for genocide is fine as long as it doesn't lead to action. In other words, the university doesn't need to respond unless the killing starts. That's quite a red line to wait for, you know, the beginning of the murder of Jews. But why do I feel like that would be explained away too? Of course, if as we're told the people shouting for genocide don't really mean it, we have to ask ourselves, what do they mean? Are these rhetorical protests? Are we being punked? Somehow I'm inclined to believe them when they call for the genocide of a nation that was just subjected to an explosion of murder and sexual atrocities. See, there's the context. Because really what the protesters are saying is, we'll have more of that, please. I'm pretty sure the Jewish students at these schools don't find all this rhetorical. But what about the other students? Maybe to them it's no big deal because they're as brain dead as their teachers. A recent Wall Street Journal poll showed that while almost 90% of college students support the Palestinian chant from the river to the sea, essentially calling for Israel's eradication, less than half could name which river they were referring to. I mean, what do they think from river to the sea means? A good deal on real estate in South Florida? Less than a quarter knew who former Palestinian Authority President Yasser Arafat was. Over 10% thought he was the first prime minister of Israel. The rest heard Arafat and thought it was a slam at obesity and condemned it as fat shaming. That was a joke, people. So these school presidents have always been loud and proud against injustice and hate speech. But now all of a sudden it depends on the context. But the context they're ignoring is October 7th. Don't they realize this is how Holocaust actually happened? Explaining away calls for genocide using context? Meanwhile, these great educators brainwash our young with a hateful view of the world comprised solely of oppressed versus oppressor. Meanwhile, in Asia, they're wasting time on math, science, and computer skills. Don't those damn Chinese realize we got a global pronoun problem? So ask yourself, if all this miseducation is damaging the nation, why do these scammers cling to it so much? Because it works for them. October 7th was the flashlight that finally exposed the full DEI scam. These incompetents only got their jobs based on the same ideology that makes justification for October 7th possible. So don't expect them to give it up like my teacher did on prom night. They have to make sure someone genuinely qualified can never get their job. And if you still doubt that these three are morons, ask yourself this. They thought those answers in public would actually work. Gay actually said that Harvard embraces free expression of all views. Right. This is at a school where all students have to attend orientations where they're told fat phobia is violence and that using the wrong pronoun is abuse, where a whopping 1.46% of the faculty actually define themselves as conservative, where Harvard placed 248th out of 248 schools in a ranking of campus free speech, right behind Kim Jong-un Community College. Claudine Gay has done and will do nothing to fix any of this, nor will any other college president, professor, and administrators who see it as their jobs to indoctrinate instead of educate. And when they start claiming they're being silenced, remember that they're whining that the intimidation used to silence people is what's being silenced. Thankfully, we found the best way to reveal them as idiots. Let them speak, then show them the door. Let's welcome tonight's guest. His writing is so sharp, hemophiliacs avoid his books. Novelist and literary critic Walter Kerr. To her, every date is a speed date. Host of the Fox True Crime Podcast, Emily Campagno. His 25 years at Fox proved that our viewers are hard of hearing. Host of One Nation and author of the new book, Teddy and Booker T, How to American Ron Kilme. And she's bony, stony, and loved by your Uncle Tony. New York Times best-selling author and Fox News contributor, Kat. Walter. Okay, so you got the UPenn president, Liz McGill, is already out the door. What about this other one, Ms. Gay, who's being accused of plagiarism?
Well, see, I don't think that the fact that there are a few copied paragraphs in her PhD thesis proves plagiarism. Mm-hmm. But it does prove that no one ever read it. Yeah. Including maybe the person who supposedly wrote it. Mm-hmm. And it certainly proves that no one expected to read it. She didn't. It's like going to the bathroom in the woods. You know, who thinks you're going to get caught? Right. But there was a park ranger behind a tree in this case. Yes. And she did get caught. Mm-hmm. And the problem is that how would she know it's plagiarism? Because these kind of theses, these social justice style theses, they all sound the same anyway. Everything's plagiarism. They use the same words, the same ideas. You wouldn't recognize it. But I think the mistake of the college presidents in general was that they came as a threesome.
Yes.
They all sat together. They came over in a car, and it was like, "You're the coolest." No, you're the coolest. You know, I'm Harvard. I'm Penn. You. And what they forgot was context. On the context of the Harvard campus, everything's genocide. Okay.
Yes.
Questioning Elizabeth Warren's Cherokee heritage is genocide at Harvard. But in the context of, you know, the world at large, normal people, especially people whose grandparents died in concentration camps, genocide still means something, and they got a little confused. So
Yes.
they shouldn't have come as a group. Also, they were so stupid. Didn't they realize 3 Ivy League presidents in a row, everybody's going to hate you?
Yeah.
Make some attempt to seem human, but they didn't.
That's because they hired a law firm. Didn't 2 of them hire the same law firm to coach them? So they didn't even trust their own thoughts. It struck me that feces rhymes with feces. I'm somehow going to work that into everything that I do.
Greg, are there any other Ivy League graduates here again, or is it just me again?
Isn't that great how you work that in?
Because I do want to say, you'll notice that the president of Princeton wasn't there.
Yeah.
And I went to Princeton. And he wasn't there because we're smart at Princeton. At Harvard, they think they're smart, and they try to prove it to everyone. At Princeton, we know it, and we keep it to ourselves. Except on TV.
Exactly. Emily, how come they had such a hard time saying genocide is like a violation of their conduct?
That's the whole question. I mean, to your point, it's like the anti-Semitic witches of Eastwick coming into the congressional hearings. And for some reason, they are unable to just declare with confidence, yes, this is anti-Semitic. Yes, this is uncalled for. Instead of dancing around and talking about how the exception could be harassment, why can't they say, yes, that's harassment, yes, that's unacceptable, and there are a few exceptions where context matters? I don't understand here how they were so quickly to err on the side of what isn't hate speech, what isn't a terrible crime, when everything out of their mouths normally is calling out what is a hate crime and what is criminal. So misgendering someone, according to these people, is truly criminal.
Right.
Calling someone a different gender, that is considered violent. Telling someone that they're pro-life or expressing your view that you are pro-life, even just being a white male, that is violent. Direct quotes from these people in their institutions. But I think that WSJ had a good op-ed today where, yes, the mask comes off, they say, about these resignations, and hopefully 2 more to follow. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Because the problem, obviously, is the rot that happens at these institutions that is now multi-generational. So the president's resigning absolves a little bit, I guess, of some money. But know where your tax dollars go for these public colleges. Know where your tuition monies go for these colleges that you send your kids to. And at the end of the day, know what rot is permeating our social fabric, because these chicks are just the mouthpieces for what is horrible anti-Semitism. But them stepping down is only the tip of the iceberg.
Iceberg, a Jewish name. Brian, it looks like one resigned, one might follow. Have you considered resigning? A lot of people
they won't
really
accept
hoping.
my resignation.
Yes,
They won't accept it.
Brian has resigned from Fox and Friends.
Like they'll go, where's Brian's? Brian's not in his office. He's on the 2nd floor trying to resign. They just won't accept it. And it's just I'm a little offended by she used the word female chicks.
Yes.
Why do you accept it on this show? Don't you have any standards? I mean, you should. I mean, we'll talk about it after. I guess.
Yes. Yeah.
How long will the post-show meeting be?
I don't know. We do usually a 3-hour post-show meeting.
And we just go through everything.
Yeah.
A couple of things. This is the Zoom moment of college. And I don't think it's just about these 3 schools. I think it's about elite colleges in general. I just don't think it's about these presidents. I actually don't care if they resign. They're doing exactly what they were hired to do. They weren't wildcatting it in front of the country. They were being themselves in front of the country, and they were exposed. So now instead of Republicans or conservatives or people who are just patriotic concerned about the future of the country saying, what's going on in our schools, and people saying, oh, there's a culture warrior, now the rest of the country is going, what's going on with our schools? This is a little out of control. And these presidents, I don't look at it as the problem. I look at it as they represent the problem. I don't care if she gets fired, but I'm sure you saw 660 Harvard faculty members sign saying she should not get fired,
right.
Which backs up the fear everybody has is that in colleges it's poison. And I think from High Point to, and not to call out a North Carolina school, but an average everyday school up until the MITs have to be looked at. And I think we should do this, Greg. Maybe you could start it because you have so much free time.
I do.
A woke rating on all these schools.
Yeah, that's a great
Let's
idea.
just do a woke rating.
That's great.
Do you want to take it as yours, or are you just placating me?
You have a very low woke rating, Brian, because no one's awake when you're on. Cat, agree. That was a sick burn. Huh? Sick burn, Cat.
Great job.
Thank you. Thanks. What do you make of this whole thing?
Well, I am a free speech absolutist, so I still am today. Even the most hateful, vile hate speech is constitutionally protected under the First Amendment. I'm always going to say that the answer to speech that you don't like, even if it's disgusting, is more speech and not moving to censor that speech. That makes me a consistent human being. The consistency does not apply to Harvard and UPenn, obviously, as you brought up. The Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, which used to be education, they rank schools based on free speech, as you mentioned, and UPenn was second to last, and then Harvard was dead last. So clearly for them, these are new things that they're saying, and Emily, as you said, that if you misgender someone or use the wrong pronouns, they'll say that is violence. I'm the kind of person that doesn't feel comfortable giving anyone that kind of power to say, because this person feels this way about this, we're going to have to ban this. So that's just me being consistent. And I don't think there should be an environment on campuses where they're censoring constitutionally protected speech. So I still feel that way. There is hypocrisy here, though, obviously.
Do you think graduating from an Ivy League school will now be a negative? Like, I got bad news. I graduated from Yale. I'm so sorry.
I got into one, and then I couldn't afford to go. And I'm like, okay, I didn't miss out on much.
Right, now you know.
Wow.
Barstool will not hire anybody from an Ivy League school. And most people aspire to go right from Harvard
to Barstool. That is true. All right, we got to move on. Shout out to the Iceberg family. They're a cold group.
Go Penn.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.